Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us there now today. Appreciate you taking the time out to come and visit us. Um, so today's webinar is picking and palletizing using robotics. And what we'll be covering off on now today is we'll give you a brief introduction into Reliance and Reliance Automation for those who are new to us. Then we'll jump into industrial versus collaborative robots and kind of just dispel some of the differences there now between them. We'll have a look at a fair few robotic palletizing examples and a few different of the standard solutions that we've got available, and also kind of jump in through to the benefits of utilizing robotics for palletizing applications. We'll also have a look at what kind of finance options are out there available to kind of help you along the way, as well as the kind of resources that are there. And if there's any questions at all, we can have a quick little Q&A session there now at the back. So myself, I'm David Webb. I'm an automation and mechanical engineer with Reliance Automation. And if there's any questions that you've got during this presentation, just throw them into the chat function, and we've got one of our other employees here, Ronan Rasdale, with us, so he'll be able to answer any questions as we go along. And we'll also be recording this webinar as well, so just in case there's anybody else who couldn't join or you want to re-review any of the contents, you can jump on at a later date and have a look at it through again. So to start off, we'll just do a quick introduction into Reliance. So Reliance Automation is part of the Reliance company now, and the Reliance company is nearly 100 years old at this point. Started back in Cork in 1925, and we're into our kind of fourth generation of being a family-owned business. Initially, we started off with kind of bearings, and gears, and the portfolio was expanded significantly over those years, and we're into an awful lot of automation and robotics now at this stage, as well as motors and a good other few pieces, belts, etc. Now we're operating in a good few different industries, but primarily the kind of focus is in around kind of food production, the life sciences, general industrial and manufacturing and transport. And we're an ISO 9001 accredited facility. Now we are fully operational during this period as well, but we understand that not everybody is available for visits at this point. So at any point you can contact us and we can set up visits through kind of Zoom calls or any videos or anything like that to consult on any of the requirements. So Reliance have 3 branches in and around Ireland. We've got one in Dublin where I'm based. We've also got our facility in Limerick and also the head office down in Cork. There's about 50 employees working there across the 3 facilities now at this point. And kind of the main thing to note is that Reliance are a distributor, we're not an integrator. So we do have a number of solutions that are kind of out of the box and don't require a hell of a lot of automation knowledge. And we're able to discuss them with end users directly, whereas there are a few projects that would be requiring a little bit more kind of technical expertise and additional infrastructure and setup and design. And for those, we approach one of our many integration partners. And these guys will be based all around Ireland and also have their expertise within certain areas, whether that be food or manufacturing, etc. So we can leverage their expertise depending on what application it is that you require. So now that we've just had a quick introduction, and we'll actually hop into the main content here now. And the first thing we'll look at is industrial versus collaborative robots. Now, collaborative robots have been around nearly a decade now at this point, and industrial robots a fair bit longer than that. But there's still a bit of confusion sometimes as to what the differences are in between the two of them. So we'll hop into those and kind of characterize them out. So the first thing we'll have a look at is the collaborative robots, and we distribute for Universal Robots, which would be kind of one of the largest collaborative robot manufacturers. They essentially invented the collaborative robot. They've over 40,000 units that are sold worldwide for various applications. And kind of the main things about these is that they're very, very quick and easy to set up. Like from taking them out of the box, just throw 4 bolts into the plinth, attach the power supply, which goes directly into your mains power. It doesn't require any kind of termination or anything like that. And you can have it powered up and starting to program within less than an hour. And they've also got a huge ecosystem there in the UR Plus, which has a lot of grippers and different application kits. And the handshake is already done through the UR Cap software. So essentially, these are kind of plug and play solutions. So you just clamp them on and away you go to start programming. So very, very quick and easy. As well as that, the UR robots are designed towards personnel who don't have a lot of automation experience. So even if you don't have those expertise in house, personnel can jump online and do a quick kind of 1 hour course that will teach you the basis of the programming. And then there are kind of offsite courses available as well, just for a couple of days, that'll kind of teach you most of the applications and commands that you require for day-to-day business. Now, with the collaborative robots, one of the major things about them is that they can work side by side along with humans. So they tend to work at the same kind of speed as a human worker. And you don't require, in a lot of cases for the collaborative applications, guarding in and around the units. And that's because of all the safety functions that they have available to them. And we'll jump into those in a little bit more detail on the next slide. Because of the sizes that they're kind of dealing with, they tend to be quite compact and they can be utilized in areas where you've not got an awful lot of space available to you. And as well as that, because they are so easy to program and because of the size of them and the weight, you can also move them around the facilities. So as your applications needs change or as the market needs change, you can very quickly move it out and redeploy it in another area around site. So we talked about the safety side of things, which would be one of the major things for the collaborative robots. So you can see the robot moving there in the background. And what it has built into it is force sensors. So it means that if the robot comes into contact with a human or something that it wasn't expecting, it'll go into a protective stop. And from this, you can just jump into the teach pad, acknowledge the fact that it has actually come into contact with something, and you can restart the program from where it has stopped. You can also customize the speed at which this moves and also how quickly it stops and the forces that stop is triggered at as well. So very, very easy to utilize it alongside personnel. So within the universal robots range, there's 4 major robots now at the minute, and these goes all the way from 3 kilograms all the way up to 16 kilogram payloads that they're capable of carrying. And they've got various different reaches as well. So the UR10 would be kind of the longer version, whereas the UR3 would be your more typical kind of tabletop robot. So UR3 and UR5 now, they'd be very good for kind of standard kind of picking and placing applications. And when we're talking about palletizing, typically we're more utilizing the UR10 and the UR16E because of their heavier payload and the larger reach capabilities of the 2 units. So we've got a couple of little videos here which kind of demonstrate these robots in action. So the first application here, we can see a number of robots that are working along a palletizing and packaging line. So we've got a couple of them doing the primary packing, and these robots are picking up the items and placing them into the box. And as well as that, they're also providing the functions to actually close that box as well. And then at the end of the line, there's a third robot there with a slightly larger reach on it, which is one loading in loading in the empty boxes. And then once the boxes are closed up, palletizing them then onto the application. So just run it again there quickly because it's quite a short clip. And kind of the main thing to note is the very tight space that these things are working in. You can see there's no guarding in and around the applications, and the workers are very, very close to the application. And the second one that we've got here is again another palletizing line. So again, we've got a robot doing the initial picking, whereas this time it's actually picking up several products at one time. So instead of having to go back and pick up each item individually, it can reduce the cycle time by picking up several at the same time. And then again, at the end of the line, we've got another robot doing the actual palletizing application, whereas this time it's integrated onto a 7th axis. So it gives the robot a much larger reach, so it can build up the pallets to a higher size. Now that we've looked at the collaborative robots, we'll have a look into the industrial side of things. So these robots tend to be kind of much larger robots and a lot more complicated in their setup. So typically you will require either some sort of in-house expertise to program these, or an integrator or machine builder to come along. The kind of the major differences is like these are able to operate at much higher speeds. So collaborative applications are kind of limited to about 250 millimeters per second, whereas industrial robots can run anywhere kind of up to 2 or 3 meters per second. So they can run at much, much higher speeds. As well as that, they can also take on higher payloads as well. So the UR robots are kind of limited to 16 kilograms because of the collaborative nature of the applications. Whereas with the industrial robots and the guarding and fencing, these can take anywhere up to a few hundred kilograms or tons in certain cases, and also a much larger reach. So if the application required, let's say, lifting large containers of bottles or sandbags or things like that, they do have the capabilities of taking on them. Now, obviously, because of these larger sizes of the robots and the more force that's there, there's a greater space required for the actual installation then as well. And you also require guarding in and around these to ensure that no personnel can walk into the area. Because whereas with the universal robots, they have the ability to stop under those kind of slower speeds and forces. These are obviously moving very, very quickly, and even if they were to stop instantaneously, it could cause a lot of harm. And due to the nature of the kind of size of these applications, then they do tend to be fixed installations. So they're set into one place and run the same application over and over again. So within the industrial range of robots, we distribute for Nachi, and Nachi are part of the Nachi Fujiko Corporation. Sorry, I keep messing up that name every time I say it. So Nachi Corporation is quite a large corporation. They've been known for their bearings and their machine tooling. They're very, very popular in the Asian and US markets, not as well known within Europe, but a very good robot. They're quite utilized in the Toyota factories. They've got a vested interest in that owning part of the Nachi robot company. So it gives you an idea of the type of quality that's in behind these. And the robot ranges that they have, they kind of take everything from a 1 kilogram robot all the way up to something that can hold several hundred. So like the MZ range now, these are the smaller robots up to 12 kilos. Again, very, very quick cycle time, like in around 0.3 of a second for a standard robot cycle. And then we move into the MC or the MR versions, which is the 7-axis ones. And they can take up to 70 kilograms of a payload. For palletizing applications, they have a specific robot that they have designated for these and designed for that. So these are only a 4-axis robot, but for most kind of palletizing applications of that size, 4 axes is all that's required, and therefore they can cut down on the costs in comparison to the heavier axis models. And then finally, they have the heavy loader series. So these can take up to several hundred kilograms and also have a very, very large reach, up to almost 4 meters. And again, we have a few examples of where these robots have been utilized for packaging applications. So in this first one, this is the LP130, so 130 kilogram payload. And this robot is capable of handling 1,800 different work pieces per hour at around kind of 50 kilograms, or about 1,500 pieces at the full payload of the robot. So you can see it moves quite quickly now through the applications. The next example we've got is another large robot. This one can handle 160 kilograms. Whereas instead of picking each box individually, because of the higher payloads that these have available to them, they can actually pick several boxes up at the same time. So similar to earlier when we were talking about picking multiple items, it can reduce the cycle time rather than having to go back and forth. And as you can see, this is contained in a cell. So what the robot will do is it'll stack up on the first pallet, And then once that's complete, it'll move on to the second pallet. And then the gate at the side will actually open up so that an operator can come in and drive a fork and take out the pallet and place in a new pallet. So they don't actually have to enter the cell at any stage. And the last one we have is very short. Sorry, I didn't put it on mute there now, so hopefully it's not too loud me talking over it. But this is another one of the LP models, the LP 180. So it's got the same footprint as the 130, but it's just capable of taking on a higher payload. So we can just see some of the variety in the applications, whereas this is taking up sandbags in this case, or boxes of cement. We'd also see these utilized an awful lot for kind of vegetable packaging and things like that. So as well as the robots, we also are partnered with an awful lot of the manufacturers of the end of arm tooling so that we can supply the complete solution. So for kind of collaborative and light industrial applications, palletizing, an awful lot of the time vacuum systems are utilized. So on Robot have a very nifty little system. It's an electric gripper that has its own vacuum generator inside the head. It's quite versatile in terms of the sizes that it can address. So you can see there on the right hand side, the three pictures, it can be a very compact little unit or spread out for larger boxes. And as well as that, it's got two different independent channels so that it can pick up two separate parts and drop a part while still holding on to another one. We also distribute for soft robotics as well. So while not traditionally used for palletizing, they're utilized an awful lot in that kind of primary picking side of things, especially where there's items that are a little bit irregular shape or difficult to pick up. So that picture there has an IV bag, and similarly, you can get them with more than 4 grippers, up to kind of 10 or 12 fingers for kind of longer items, such as say a frozen loaf of bread or something like that. And then for the kind of customized solutions, we also work with Zimmer Group as well, which have a modular system so that we can build up custom grippers depending on the requirements, if it's a case where a standard one out of the box won't be sufficient for the needs. So they're all the individual components that build it up. We have a couple of companies that we work with for kind of complete palletizing solutions. So the first one we have a look at here, again, sorry about the noise. This was shown at one of the expos that we presented at. So this is DCS, or Dynamic Controlled Solutions, and it's a very, very compact little solution. So it's utilizing a UR10 in this case, and the palletizing routines are actually done through the robot itself. So the palletizer is fitted with a couple of proxy sensors so it can detect when the pallets are in place, so it won't actually build up if there's nothing in that. And it's also a very mobile solution as well. So you just set it up, and then if you need to, you can move it along by just putting it onto a forklift. It's a very, very simple kind of solution. Another one of the manufacturers that we work with are Olympus. And Olympus manufacture a palletizing cell as well. And what's particularly inventive about this is the software that they utilize. I'll just throw up a little video on this side. So with the software, what you can do is essentially just drag and drop your pallets into the kind of configuration that you require. And this could be done offline while the robot is running. So you set that up, and then you can input that configuration into your robot. And what it will do is it'll automatically program that routine. So it's UR capped. So essentially all you have to do is set up your configuration, and then away you go. And these come with the on-robot VG10 grippers as standard, but as in this case, you can see they also do customizable grippers as well. And this can be set up for both palletizing and depalletizing routines. And these cells are also EC certified straight out of the box as well, so there's no additional certification that's required. Now that we've kind of seen a few of the examples out there and what kind of technologies are available, what are the benefits of adding palletizing through robotics to your organization? So as we've seen, like especially with some of the industrial robots, the speeds at which they're capable is quite a lot larger than you'd be able to do manually. But even on the collaborative applications, the productivity increases that you can gain by having these in place rather than utilizing manual workers can be massive. And also the fact that they can be run lights out as well to a certain extent. If you have a conveyor system running, allows you to get much higher efficiencies out of the tasks that you're performing. Also, with the introduction of the robots, there's less direct labor hours associated with the task itself. So instead of having personnel there the whole time, these people can be utilized for more high-skill tasks or more value-added tasks. And one of the major things in behind it is the reducing the risk of injury to personnel. So with light objects, even continuously picking and placing the whole time can cause repetitive strain injuries. And then obviously with heavier payloads, there can be heavier strains on personnel. So introducing robotics can help remove those kind of risks. And an awful lot of the time, we actually integrate these because of the result of an EHS audit identifying this part of the line as a particularly high risk. By increasing or introducing the robots into the applications and moving personnel onto better tasks, the people can actually be skilled up to be operating the robots as opposed to doing these menial tasks all the time. So typically the workers feel more empowered in their jobs and there's a higher chance of retention of personnel. In comparison to kind of traditional palletizing systems that are out there, the robotic systems are also extremely flexible. So an awful lot of the palletizing machines that are out there, they're only good for a certain amount of sizes. Whereas with the robotic solutions, they could be reprogrammed to various different products and different requirements as you see fit. Also, by removing that personnel, you can increase the chances of not damaging the product. Like these robots are extremely repetitive and extremely accurate. So there's a very little chance of damaging the product as it's been done once it's set up correctly. And then you can also integrate kind of different vision systems and the ERP systems as well, so that there's checking done along the process. So there's less chance of kind of returns or anything from your shipments. And as the cost of the installation is the same, regardless of it's now or in a few years' time, there's no increase in the production costs as you go through. So there's no wage increases associated with these robots. And you know, once you've accounted for the initial cost of the project, that this is going to be the same as you go along. And also with integration of robotic solutions for the palletizing side, there's potential synergies. Like we're seeing more and more now, AMR is introduced into warehousing solutions. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be doing a little bit more in depth into that in a mirror webinar that we'll be hosting. So keep an eye on your social media feeds for that. Now, quite a lot of the time we find that personnel want to integrate and they've seen the benefits of the robotic solutions, but access to capital for the initial cost is a little bit of an issue and can be the barrier to them actually going ahead with a solution. So it's great to know that there are finance options available. So through our partners, we can offer various different solutions for financing. So this can be done over various years and at quite low rates. And also it's very flexible in terms of how the finance can be operated. So it can also be done at kind of seasonal rates, whereas you can pay more through your busy periods when you're getting more income and kind of reduce then during periods that are a little bit slow. It also allows you to be very agile in how you actually end the term of the lease. whether it be taking on the robot or also sending back the robot and getting the next technology. It's not just the robots as well that can be financed. The complete solution, including the end effectors and the cells and everything else like that, can be incorporated into this solution. And it just means it doesn't tie up the initial credit and installation costs. This could be spread out over a period so that your cash flows aren't affected. So as you're going through, and we've seen all the different types and how this can be integrated, there's an awful lot of questions that do still come up. I know it's quite a brief introduction into the palletising application in robotics. So just to let you know a few of the applications and resources that are out there available. So Universal Robots have a brilliant application builder where it actually takes you through each one of the steps involved in kind of setting up your picking and palletising application. So you can see the different types of robots that are available, the different types of end effectors, and also the different types of setups in terms of how you're feeding the robot and how you want to palletize it or place it then at the end of the line. And then following that, it'll actually output a simulation of the software and a template for that application so that can be loaded directly into your robot. And all you have to do is then kind of teach the waypoints and the rest. We mentioned earlier that they've got an e-learning suite and the robotics academy that they have. So very, very easy to kind of jump on there, just spend an hour and you can see just how quick and simple it is to actually start your robot programming. On top of that, there's various blogs and articles that they've got available addressing individual applications and the different kind of functions that have available within the product code. We've also got an awful lot of videos there, so hop on board and you can see various case studies depending on what industry you're involved in, and you can see the different types of solutions that have been implemented, kind of give you inspiration or give you an idea of what types of technology have been utilized for what types of tasks in the past. And last but not least, there's ourselves here at Reliance Automation. Ultimately, we're here to support you along your specification. So whether it be a case that you're just starting out on your robotics journey, or it's a case where you've also got robotics integrated already and you're looking to expand or optimize the solution, we can help kind of talk you through what kind of steps are involved in that and what the requirements may be. So feel free to have a chat with us now at any stage. Now, we've been running a series of webinars ourselves pretty much every week, whereas next week we're going to take a break. And the reason for that is Universal Robots are running an online expo for 3 days next week from Tuesday to Thursday. And within that, there's a huge amount of content from industry experts addressing various different areas, both from a business setup and also from technical points of view, seeing different applications and also the effects and what's going on in the industry now at the minute. So I'd very much encourage you to hop on board and have a look at that and see what kind of talks are interesting to yourselves. As well as that, if you can't attend at any stage, those ones are recorded. So even if you can't jump on board to the 2 o'clock, you can see it later on that day. So the link is just there at the top of the page. So thank you very much for joining us there today. Fairly quick and concise one. I know people are getting absolutely hounded to death by webinars, so we wanted to keep it nice, quick and short there now today, to let you get on with your busy lives. But at the same time, if there's any of the content there now that you wish to discuss in more detail, feel free to contact us. And I'm just having a check there with Ronan, and there's no particular questions that have come up during this presentation that need to be addressed initially. But if there is anything else, we can pick it up offline now at a later time. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us there now today. Really appreciate the time. As I said, you can, I will send out a link to this afterwards. So if there's any of it you wanted to jump on afterwards or share it amongst other personnel, please feel free to do so. All right, thank you very much, and have a great day for yourselves.